Hey there Star Wars fans, and welcome back to Astromech Productions, a Star Wars and LEGO Star Wars YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be talking about my LEGO Star Wars set ideas for The Mandalorian Season 2. The Mandalorian Season 2 is one of the most critically acclaimed and widely watched Star Wars things, so naturally, I expect LEGO to produce some sets for it. So in this video, I'll be going over the 10 sets that I most want to see for The Mandalorian Season 2. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first set that I would like to see is from The Mandalorian Chapter 9, The Marshal, and it's what I call the Tatooine procession. So it would include the Mandalorian speeder bike, a Korvus speeder bike, and a Bantha, not kind of one of the little Brit ones, but maybe a big moulded one. And it would essentially be like when they're going to face off against the Crate Dragon. So maybe you could have some bombs on the Bantha, something like that. And the set would include the Mandalorian, Korvus, and 2 Tusken Raiders, and I could see it coming in at about £35 or £40. Okay, the second set that I would like to see is from The Mandalorian Chapter 10, The Passenger, and it's what I call the Spider Attack, and it's basically the scene where Baby Yoda's eating the eggs and all the spiders kind of hatch, and there's a big mummy spider and they chase them back to the Razor Crest. So in this set you'd have the main big spider, maybe a couple of small hatchlings that would probably be moulded, and then a couple of eggs. And in terms of minifigures, you would have the Mandalorian, Baby Yoda, and Fog Lady. I think this would be a nice set because you know that big spider is quite a cool thing from the season. It'd be interesting how they go about building that, and I'd see the set coming in at about £30 or so. The next set is from The Mandalorian Chapter 11. You can probably see a bit of padding coming here from the Heiress. And this is the Gazan Cruiser. Now, we did get a Gazan Cruiser back in 2015, I believe, under the guise of the Imperial Assault Carrier, set 75106. But that was very much kind of quite a small, closed-in cruiser. It didn't have much interior space. So I'd certainly like to see them remake it with, a much bigger interior space and a lot better build. Now, so obviously the set would include simply the Gazan Cruiser, no other bits, and in it we would have the Mandalorian, Bo-Katan, Cosca Reeves, an Imperial officer, the one who electrocuted himself to death, and a Stormtrooper, and it would come in at about £80 or so, maybe a bit higher. I think this could be a very nice set for them to make. Obviously we get Bo-Katan and Cosca Reeves, which would be really cool, and I think this could be a very popular set if they did make it, because it's one of the more iconic scenes from The Mandalorian Season 2. My next set is obviously from Mandalorian Chapter 11, The Siege, and this is the Outland TIE Fighter. It's obviously from the scene where they've left the base and they're chasing down the canyon, and we again see the Outland TIE Fighter that Moth Gideon had in Chapter 7 and Chapter 8 of Season 1. So this set would include just the Outland TIE Fighter, and then have an Outland TIE Fighter pilot, an Imperial cloning engineer, and a Scout Trooper. I think this could be a very cool set. Obviously we get the Imperial cloning engineer, which would be really nice to see. Sure, we only saw them for kind of 10 seconds maybe, even if that, in the episode. And I think this LEGO could go two ways with this. They could either make it the same way as they made the most recent 2020 TIE Fighter, which was smaller, I believe about £50 or so, or they could go bigger like they did for the Solo TIE Fighter and make it about £80-90. I'd be happy with either. It would be cool if they made it kind of a bigger set, but obviously then it'd be less accessible, especially to people like me, so I prefer them to keep the price down slightly but still make a really nice set. This next set is again from The Mandalorian Chapter 12, The Siege, and this is the Imperial Transport, or as it's actually known in universe, the Trexler Marauder. And this is, again, when you have that canyon scene when they're running away from the base. This is what they essentially escape in, Cara Dune and Greef Karga and the Mithril. Now, for this set, I would obviously have the Trexler Marauder, the actual transport, a speeder bike, or maybe two Scout Troopers, Cara Dune, and the Mithril. And I think this could come in at about £50 to £60. This could be a really nice set, a big kind of sturdy build, and they could do a lot with it. They could either make it kind of small, or they could actually make it pretty big and hefty. And yeah, I just think that this would be a really nice set, and it's quite an iconic scene from Season 2. Our sixth set is from The Mandalorian Chapter 13, The Jedi, and this is what I call the Battle on Korvus. So it is essentially Ahsoka Tano versus the Magistrate, Maud and Elspeth. And the basic kind of structure would be the Magistrate's villa. And I could see, so you could obviously have like the plants and maybe a bit of the wall and maybe a tiny bit of the backyard. It would be a similar sort of scale to the Battle on Takodana. So we got a 2015 or possibly 2016, I can't remember. And it would be that kind of scale. And then in the set, I'd obviously hope for the Mandalorian, Ahsoka Tano, the Magistrate, Morgan Elspeth, and Lang. And I think this could come in at about £40, similar again to the Battle on Takodana. Okay, our next set is from The Mandalorian Chapter 14, The Tragedy, and this is obviously the Slave One, one of the most iconic ships from Star Wars. It's an absolutely beautiful ship. Now, we did see it back in 2019, the 20th anniversary, but I think, they could wait a few years to do this. I mean, the ship doesn't play a huge part in this actual episode, but it plays a fairly big part later on in the season. And in fact, you do have the kind of the whole seismic bomb bit in it, so obviously I think it would be very worth to be a ship from Mandalorian Season 2. And obviously you'd have Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, it'd be really nice to see her, and obviously Boba in his very scratched up dented armour, the Mandalorian, a Mortar Trooper, one of the yellow ones, they were really cool, and a Stormtrooper. And I think this could come in at about £70 to £80. Okay, so this next set is again from Chapter 14, The Tragedy, and it's what I call the Tyson Temple. So this is obviously where the Mandalorian sets down Grogu on the Seeing Stone, and he reaches out with the Force and finds himself a new Jedi Master. Then obviously later on in the episode, Grogu gets taken by the Dark Troopers. So in this, I'd see sort of a small kind of base item plate thing, and then you'd have the standing stones in that kind of really cool curved finger around the Seeing Stone, and then obviously the Seeing Stone itself. And for minifigures, you'd have the Mandalorian, Grogu, and 2 Dark Troopers. And I think this could come in at about maybe £35-40. But yeah, I think it'd be a really cool set to see. If they could find a way to make Baby Yoda, do that kind of Force Reach thing, maybe have some bits turned blue, that'd be cool. But I'd be surprised if they could. But I still like to see the set anyway. The penultimate set on my list is from The Mandalorian Chapter 15, The Believer, and this is the Imperial Combat Assault Transport, or as it's more commonly known, the Imperial Juggernaut. This has quickly become a fan favourite vehicle from The Mandalorian, especially The Mandalorian Season 2, and it's basically a kind of a big cargo tank on wheels. It's really cool. They do a really sick thing with the suspension like they did with the previous turbo tank, the clone one, and I really enjoyed that. I think, because it's got the kind of section parts, the bend things in the middle, it'd be super interesting to see how they do that. So obviously this set would just be the Imperial Juggernaut, and then you get the Mandalorian. You can maybe get him just in the Imperial Juggernaut pilot costume, or maybe, because we don't actually really see him in his best guy on this, we could get Migs Mayfeld, obviously maybe the same, but I think I prefer those two characters in their original costume because it would set them apart maybe. Then Fennec Shand, 2 Imperial Combat Assault Transport pilots, and a Shore Trooper maybe, and I could see this coming in at about £80 to £100. Okay, my final set is Moth Gideon's Cruiser. This is obviously from The Mandalorian Chapter 16. It was seen another bits from Chapter 16, The Rescue, but yeah, so mine's obviously from this bit, and this would just include Moff Gideon's Cruiser, and it would have the Mandalorian, Grogu, Cara Dune, Luke Skywalker, Moff Gideon, Stormtrooper, and an Imperial officer, and it would come in at between £120 to £160. Now, this set is strongly rumoured. I believe some people are claiming to have seen pictures on it. Obviously, I can't confirm that, but I think it'd be really cool if the set did come. Now, it's rumoured to be £160, which for me is way too much. Obviously, in my prediction, I said it'd be about £120 to £160, but I'd like it if it was slightly less, just make it slightly more accessible. Now, I think they should do a decent interior. Obviously, they've never done an Arquidens class cruiser before, so it'd be really cool how they do the interior and how it would scale up with stuff like the Star Destroyers that they've done in the past. But I'd be really excited to see this, and obviously, they'd have to make sure they've got a hallway. They could do Luke Skywalker. Maybe they could chuck a couple of Dark Troopers in there as well instead of the Stormtrooper. That might be an idea. Obviously, if it was up to me, I'd just have Moff Gideon, Grogu, the Mandalorian, Cara, Koska, Boba, Luke, Bo-Katan, etc. But obviously we've got to limit
the minifigures down, but I think this is 100% a set that they have to make. Even if that rumor is not true for this summer, they should 100% make this set at some point, because it'd be a really awesome set. Okay guys, so which of these sets from the Mandalorian Season 2 do you most want to see come to fruition? For me, it's obviously Moff Gideon's cruiser and the Gazan cruiser. I think they'd be super cool. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe and turn your post notification bells on if you want more Star Wars and LEGO Star Wars videos like this. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you next time on Astromech Productions.